Live. Oh, we're live. The pre-show. It's the pre-show, Mike.
It is the
Got
pre-show.
anything for the pre-show?
Well, this should be saved for the regular podcast, but
Yeah.
the G League draft is going on right now, and
I don't know that we need to save the G-League draft for the regular pod.
And the Blue Coats had the first overall pick. And they took
and
my guy Morey from St. John's.
Who are they? So for the G-League draft, like it's people who weren't selected and then weren't signed, or how does
No,
that even work?
This is just, I think, like a available free agents type of deal.
Okay.
In the G League pool, and some I think that are new, like LiAngelo Ball was supposed to be in the G League draft. But Morey good, lefty, point guard, score first.
There's no problem in doing this in the pre-show, Mike. Zero problem.
I'm going to repeat all of this. This is all going to get repeated.
Zero issue. Here I am. I'm at the brewery. There's people in here only hearing my side. So ready to go? Let's do it. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo. You don't have to be quiet. You can talk. Yeah. No, I'm just saying you can talk. That's all. I didn't want you to think that it had to be like a library. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTS, and brought to you by Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. Get yours at bigbarker.com/Ricky. By Nature Pet Food, slow cooked with superfusion. Use code 20RTRS at Chewy or Amazon for 20% off your first order. And Kinetic Skateboarding, get 9.1% off your first order with code Dave Silver. On the show today, oh boy, what a familiar story. The Sixers lead for most of the game and then blow it against the Nets. Daryl Morey says the current situation with Simo the Savage could take up to 4 years. And I am at Four Fingers Brewery with one beer. There it is, one beer after Bark in the Park, if you're watching it. And there's Ricky listeners here only hearing me and drinking one beer. So you can come by, if you're watching this live, come by, get one beer. They have 4 packs of it. Also on draft, also lots of other beers. Also, in the mailbag, we have our first email from CJ's friend group. Of course, we had a request on the last pod for updates from CJ's friend group. So we have an email from one of CJ's friends. Before we get going, the Ricky reprint sale going on now, 6 classic Ricky shirts, all $21.99. All pre-order, and they will all be on sale until Friday at midnight. Great shirts that haven't been on sale for a very, very long time. So $21.99 at rightstoRickySanchez.com. Without any further ado, the war on drugs.
Lying in my bed, a creature void of form, been so afraid of everything, I need a chance to be reborn.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who is not at Four Fingers Brewery, is sitting by himself in his home. Boo, you're getting booed here, Mike. That is Mike Levin.
Shockingly, the first time I've been booed during this podcast. And how has it taken this long? How could it have possibly taken this long?
You should have been booed years ago.
Absolutely.
The intro music is from War on Drugs. We are doing War on Drugs intro and outro music until their new album comes out on Friday called I Don't Live Here Anymore. And we're working it out. So Adam and Dave from War on Drugs are going to be on this week, I believe. So that's exciting. Mike, boy, I was hoping for a win so we could do the even out of the podcast where we talk about like the win and then we talk about the other stuff. But in just the most Sixers way of the last few years, they lead for most of the game, can't get a bucket for the last 6 minutes and blow it. A loss against the Nets, not really that big a deal, but the way that it happened was like the shittiest way you could have imagined.
Yeah. Game 2 of the regular season, new starting point guard, Embiid not at full health.
Yeah.
And yet those familiar feelings of anger and frustration and wondering what the fuck Doc is doing. Like, I love that we're like accountability is the name of the game again. And then Doc is like, my guy told me not to not to do it. He
Like,
said, don't do it. He said, don't challenge it. I honestly, Doc, do you even have like the authority to like do a challenge? Because you have like that, the nameless assistant in the back seems like he's pulling the strings. That's a joke. I mean, first of all, on the out of bounds thing, the new rule that you just under 2 minutes, they're not reviewing it. You have to use a challenge for it. To not try it there, I think was a bad idea. And then also on the Danny block charge call, which I think was probably a 50-50 toss-up. I don't think it was an automatic reversal, but it's still the thing you try to do. Like, coaches you don't get to take them to the grave. Like, you don't get to use challenges and save them up. And like right before you're about to die, you're like, I got 17 challenges. I'm going to reverse them all now. Just like use a fucking challenge. Use one. Use it on something that doesn't even matter if there's a minute left. Just try it. You are wasting it and legitimately cost them the game. Obviously other things cost them the game also, but like the play after the charge call, the block call that Doc did not review 2 in a row. LaMarcus Aldridge and 1, and the game was never in the Sixers' hands again. And
did he say he didn't challenge it to not ruin momentum, or did he say that after the game? Okay, because I saw people tweeting about it, and I didn't see a comment about that. I saw people tweeting something about momentum.
No, I'm not sure. I think if there genuinely is an assistant coach that is in charge of those things that Doc gives full autonomy to and doesn't take ownership at all, then that person should have been fired by now. Like that like 2 straight calls to not use, like, sorry, thumbs down, we're not using it. Then take accountability and fire that person and say this won't happen again. Like, it really, and I felt the same way. I've always been about accountability. I've always been about accountability. I'm a generally pro Andy Reid guy, even when he was in Philly. But like the clock management stuff was always insane to me. It is insane to me how some basic things coaches can scheme out their fucking little dicks off, and then we get to like something that's very obvious that anyone that played like Madden or like just generally has use of he values like a timeout over the idea that he could change a call. Like, what confidence he has as himself and a coach to be like, my timeout, the wisdom that I'm going to give to these guys is so much greater than the fact that we could maybe just overturn a call and get the ball back. What's more important is me giving my voice. And that's like how he carries himself all the time, is that like he thinks he could fucking change it around. And it's just stupid. It's dumb. It's amazing that coaches aren't better at that kind of stuff, because that's the simple shit. That is the simple shit.
So I do think he probably gives, just like football. Football is somebody else who makes the call whether they challenge something or not. Like you have to. I would imagine this is not a defensive Doc Rivers, who I've never said is all that good a coach and has blown multiple 3-1 leads in the playoffs. But if you're doing all these other things, you have to say that it's somebody else's job to tell you whether you should challenge it or not.
Of course, you have that guy.
Yeah.
But you overrule them with like 45 seconds left in the game to be like, we're going to try it.
Yeah, I guess unless you didn't see it well enough, whatever. I don't want to argue that side of it. I need to explain to you how awkward it is here, because there's 15 like people here that are all like fans of the pod, and they just hear me talking and not you, so they're being very quiet, like it's a library, and it's making me feel bad about it. And actually, Eric walked in and said, "Why is everybody being so quiet?" And I think it's like respect almost, but I wish they would just talk to each other. So, well, you can't tell me anything because you're there. Are you taking a picture of me?
Yeah.
Okay. That's even worse. That's even worse is going on. So the takeaway that I took away, honestly, the biggest thing that I took away from last night that bothered me, and I've always been pro Joel, and I've been accused of being too pro Joel, especially given are you too pro Joel or are you too pro Ben? So he hurt his knee, which is a bummer in the first game. Obviously had the meniscus thing in the end of last season, but this is not related to it. He just banged his knee. And then it was unsure whether he was going to play. He didn't look great. He didn't look great moving around. He didn't look great on offense. He didn't look great on defense. But then afterwards, somebody asked him about the knee, and he said that, he probably shouldn't have been playing, but he wanted to be out there for the guys. I'm kind of over that. I'm kind of over I didn't play so well, so I'm going to find a way to talk about the injury. Either you're playing or you're not playing. Either you are capable of doing what you need to do or not capable. We all saw it. We all know that your knee is there. It's just sort of as part of the evolution of him, and to be the guy, the leader guy. The leader guy doesn't after the game say that you shouldn't have been playing and sort of raise that question and wonder whose problem it was that you shouldn't have been playing. Again, they could have won the game without him playing all that well. But I'm just kind of over that stuff. And it's been, it's happened since he's been here. And again, as a pro Joel guy, either you're playing or you're not playing, and don't afterwards tell everyone maybe I shouldn't have been in the game when you don't have that great of a game. And I think that's an instinct of his that has to go almost.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I think that he should, if after the game, if after a loss, he's going to say I shouldn't have been playing, then you shouldn't have been playing. It's the second game of the regular season. What are we doing?
Yeah. It's one or the other, either you can play or you can't play.
And they're clearly obviously we'll get to each individual player and everything, but a weakness of this team is that they don't get to the line, and no one does except for Embiid. And even Embiid hasn't gotten to the line in his more traditional 10 to 12 times a game type of thing. Seems like he's settling for jumpers a little bit too much. Not threes. I'm totally fine with him shooting threes, but settling for little mid ranges, which he's great at. But he's just got to get to the line also. And there was a couple times when he did decide I'm just getting there, but it's the kind of thing that you just need more of. Especially when the offense slows down. This game ended on a 16-1 Brooklyn run. The last basket that they scored was the Matisse alley-oop from Tobias, which was great. But it's just they got to find a better way to manufacture offense. And Embiid obviously didn't look the best. Danny airballed 3 threes in the fourth quarter, which is insane and hard to do. One of which was the heat check, which is wild. I've airballed 2 threes. I'm hot. Give me a chance to shoot it with 20 seconds left. There's just a bunch of insane things. And obviously the doc stuff we already talked about, but there's a fundamental problem with this team over the last many years outside of the stretch where Jimmy Butler was here.
100 years.
That they struggle to score at the ends of games. And they just have to be better. Part of it is that Ben was not that person, but it's obviously not only Ben. They still struggle to do it. Embiid has to figure out how to either definitely get fouled there. They don't call as much stuff in the end of the games, or draw the defense and kick it out to good shooters. It just seemed really slowed down. It just it's bad. And it's the second game of the regular season. This is, I think, the kind of learning experience type thing when you look at a season individually and go we can learn from this, we can grow from this. They did play well for most of the game until everything fell apart in the last 5. But because it's the same issue that's been happening for years now, and aside from a couple months of Jimmy Butler, the team just hasn't figured out how to get past it. It remains alarming.
Yeah, it's 2 things, right? First of all, it's not having a player on the perimeter who can do it. But second of all, Doc's never been I don't know. When you look at those Boston teams, you should go look at the stats of those Boston teams who had 3 incredible offensive players. They were never a particularly good offensive team. Those were, but all that said, it was the same problem with Brett. It was it's a personnel issue to me. First and foremost, it's a personnel issue, but and it's painful. What was it, 16-1 run or 15-1 run, whatever it was. But you hit 1 bucket or 2 buckets, and all of a sudden you win the game.
And they're just generally a slow team. Aside from Maxey, they're just not fast with the ball. No one on the team is fast with the ball. I think I like Tobias going downhill. We'll talk about that, but Maxey's the only guy that can really get anywhere. Danny's slow as shit. Seth is slow as shit with the ball. Everybody is there. It's just Maxey, and so either they have to get used to, if this is the personnel, they have to get used to going, yeah, we're going to give our 20-year-old point guard who was drafted in the 20s, we're going to let him take over the games at the end and just
fucking give it to him. Just fucking give him the ball and tell him to run a pick and roll and see if he hits a fucking shot. Just do it. This
is where it'd be nice to have, like, Joel, especially without Ben there, Joel improving as a roller would be really, really big. There are we've been talking about this for so long. He just doesn't do it. He pops, and he's obviously a great shooter, but him being a roll man and like whether it's a lob threat or just like a catch it in traffic type of thing, there's just not enough easy buckets that they generate, and that's ways to get fouled. This way you watch so many teams just get easy buckets out of that, and we never do. And now that we have both between Maxey and I would add Korkmaz is a really good pick and roll passer. You need some of that stuff. You need to just get easy looks out of it. And at the end of the games, like, it seems like they just forget that they can do that. And Joel making a conscious effort to improve in that department would be really big.
I am not a tell you what to bet kind of guy, but I was looking on the first night of the season. I looked at DraftKings Sportsbook, the presenting sponsor of the Ricky, and I looked at the futures odds. And then the Bucks were plus 900 to win the title. By the way, the Nets are plus 225. The Lakers, who look like fucking trash, are plus 500. And the Bucks they were plus 900 when I looked. They're plus 850. Look, don't come back at me and get mad if it doesn't win. But plus 850 for the team that won the championship last year is probably the best team in the league. Really, really good odds. Look,
I got him at plus 800. And I also went with the Nuggets at plus 2,000, I think. Just as I put 50, and $50 is more than I've ever put down on a futures bet. I'm not like a big better, but I put $50 on the Bucks at plus 900. Anyway, DraftKings Sportsbook, new customers can bet just $5 on any NBA team to win their game. If they do, you get $200 in free bets. So do it. $5 if you're a new customer on any NBA team to win their game, you get $200 in free bets. Also, same game parlays on DraftKings Sportsbook. Everybody loves same game parlays. I haven't really done it yet. What a same game parlay is, you put a bunch of bets together and you get these crazy odds. You see it on Twitter all the time. I haven't done it yet, but I know it's fun. It looks fun. I'm actually scared of how fun it looks. DraftKings is safe, secure, reliable. Best of all, you deposit, you withdraw your cash whenever you want. It's just like this. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code RTRS to bet just $5 on any NBA team to win their game and win $200 in free bets. If they win, you win. Wait, what? You win with promo code RTRS. That's what they wrote for me. This week at DraftKings Sportsbook. An authorized sports betting partner of the NBA, must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or PA only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. A good thing. I'm going to come up with a good thing because we've complained about the game and there were some good things. I think, though he is not the guy that you want in the playoffs being your backup point guard for sure. I think the run that Korkmaz is getting as sort of like backup creator guy now will help as the season goes on. And I do appreciate that they have to do it because of the personnel issue, with Milton being hurt. And but I think like we've talked about it before. He's a good creator. He sees the floor really well. He's a crafty passer. He's a bit of a show off, and maybe makes passes he shouldn't. But there were a couple of moments last night where I thought he looked great again. And I just think these reps in actual games will pay dividends later in the season. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been a point guard overseas. I think he's probably as a pick and roll passer, one of the best players that they've had in the last decade doing it. I think his ability to shoot if they go behind screens or pull up if they're dropping and just take a little step back in the mid range and just like legitimately pass with like having a high vantage point of that. And he's big enough to finish at the rim. Obviously, he does not a ton of burst, but I'd say the shooting makes up for it in that department. Mm-hmm. I think you look at him and Niang, like the fact that they got them both for so cheap. They're like compared to the Duncan Robinson, Landry Shamet, Joe Harris, other types of contracts, which are getting paid like way more money than both of those guys. Like those are steals. Those deals are absolute like steals. And Korkmaz is playing like he should have gotten $12 million a year. So I will claim
be right.
that. Absolutely. He deserves. Look, I mean, they're paying like Duncan Robinson's making like 20-some million. That's insane. Like he's good, he's better than Korkmaz, but he's not that much better than Korkmaz. That's crazy. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited that Korkmaz is showing more to his game. I'm excited that Korkmaz is happy. He's There's nobody better.
Again, that's how you handle a trade request that does not get fulfilled. Furkan Korkmaz. Yeah, well, he just kept building and building, but he stayed here. I
think he's Embiid's favorite player on the team. I think
really.
Embiid mentioned.
Do you say that because of his reaction to when?
Yeah, just whenever he does stuff, I feel like Embiid is the happiest. I think because there's just longevity there. He's him and Ben are the second and third most longest tenured players on the team.
Yeah,
love him. I thought Tobias played well. I thought Tobias had a really nice game, but again, like you can't get to the free throw line 0 times. Like you just can't take 20 shots and get to the line 0 times. Like
and by the way, like I'm not going to throw his contract, but like at some point during those last 5 minutes,
absolutely.
like get a bucket,
for sure. I thought there were nice things to see. Like he took an off the dribble 3 with Millsap right on him, and he hit it. That was nice. He had another pull up 2 off the dribble with Joe Harris right there. Like that is, he said he was doing that in the offseason, and those are the kinds of things that will matter in the playoffs. But for that to disappear in the end of a game where they didn't score in the last 5 minutes is pretty tough. He also had a nice catch and shoot 3 off a Maxey swing with Durant collapsing on him, which was not easy. So I'm happy about that. And I like, transition T. I'm happy about him being that guy. He had the lob to Matisse was really nice. He can always get to the basket himself in transition. He still needs some work finding others. Like it seems like he's either head down, I'm going in a straight line to the basket, or like I'm sort of confused. But he's definitely going to be a guy to need to carry that second unit with him and Drummond, and then even if it's Korkmaz, like some creation ability back there, and then you can stagger that with Embiid with just shooters and let that offense be as good as it is. But he's got to get to line more. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like there are a couple times he doesn't get calls, but like there should be an assistant coach, Tobias's, skills coach, whatever it is, that should just be like every practice be like, we need to get this here. He should be averaging 6 free throws a game at least. Like he's getting too many opportunities. I know, but that should be a focal point. And the fact that it isn't is like someone needs to be held. Like he needs to be like, I need to get to the line more. Like Embiid should be telling him he needs to get to the line more. Doc should be saying like it has to happen. He needs to be held what he's practicing. We need to be doing this. It's 20 free throws from a guy that big, or 20 field goal attempts from a guy that big to get 0 free throw attempts. It can't happen. It cannot happen. He's got to get to the line more.
I'm sure people are dying for us to talk about Drummond, and I want to make one. Drummond made some nice passes. He played well. I do want to be clear though, because everybody wants me to do some like apology tour because I had a meltdown about Drummond. People were doing the same thing about Dwight Howard at this point in time last year.
Yeah.
Everybody was super thrilled about Dwight Howard. It is not about can Andre Drummond be a suitable backup center in the regular season. Everybody thinks Andre Drummond can do that. Like he is, as far as like from a skill standpoint, he has outsized that role. The problem is that he has shown that he is not terribly willing to just sort of like do what needs to be done. And he didn't, as you've repeated several times, he does not show that, he does not give us the ability to have that other look that you would want. He's perfectly capable of doing this. I just think it's like in the playoffs, like he's going to throw a pass even if we're in the playoffs, he's going to throw a pass out of bounds. He's going to try a post up that he shouldn't try. Like that's my bet with Drummond. If he doesn't, he could be great. If he has like Dwight mindset and like, I'm going to be a backup for the rest of my life, then that's fine. He played great, but I think when it matters, it's going to be a problem.
We've talked about that plenty, about how there's just not a different look that the Sixers can throw out another team. It's just Drummond is just worse Embiid at everything. Although he's probably a better passer, and every pass is at risk of going behind the back. There is even the simplest passes could be in danger of going behind his big ass and around there. But he had a couple nice passes. It really, to a back cutting Tobias, he passed him open, which is really nice. That's like a good anticipation, and good on Tobias for looking for it. And the defense is good, especially for a backup center. He is an above average defender for a backup center.
For sure. Yeah.
He blocked a Harden drive in an isolation. He had a on-ball strip of Joe Harris that started the break. He's really long and his hands are very strong. Like, he can make things happen like that, and that's going to help. And he's going to be better at Dwight than that. But again, it's LaMarcus Aldridge kept hitting mid-range jumpers, and like wide open mid-range jumpers, because like, one, Drummond was protecting the rim, but also like he's not fast. He's not getting out there. The Sixers have no one out there until they play B-ball Paul, which hopefully they will against Oklahoma City. They have no one out there that you want switching onto the perimeter and stuff. And Aldridge kept eating all game long, and it's going to look like that in the playoffs too. Like, they just don't have other looks unless they really live with the stress of major regular season B-ball Paul minutes, because otherwise it's a trade deadline acquisition, which we were hoping for last year, and it didn't happen.
One negative Niang thing, even though everybody keeps talking about him being an upgrade over Mike Scott. It's absolutely an upgrade over Mike Scott.
Upgrade.
Though, as a basketball player, though Mike Scott is a person, as a Ricky person, we love Mike Scott. That's not a negative Mike Scott thing. But watching him try to play defense makes you appreciate players when they have the appropriate role. Makes you appreciate players like Covington or Crowder or PJ Tucker that can hit threes and also play defense. And like, I just think about the playoffs, and I think about Niang against any of these teams, against Milwaukee or Brooklyn, and like, his feet are like 200 pounds each. And he's a fine player and does what he's supposed to do. He's just going to get fucking obliterated in the playoffs. And it makes you appreciate players like that. And we aside from Danny, we don't really have players like that, and it's the most useful player in the NBA right now, is a player like that. And we really only have one of them. He's 35, So
yeah. And he was over 3 air balls in the fourth quarter. So not exactly the most dependable. Was happy for Danny that he hit 2 straight pull-up threes in the first quarter.
Early. It was great.
And the crowd didn't even seem like, at least on TV, the crowd was like, okay. Like, even when it went in, they didn't seem like that pumped about it, because they were like, he's going to keep doing this. But I know how happy it makes him, so I was happy for that. Danny's been in foul trouble in both games. He's taken some like dumb region fouls, and like, he just can't be doing that when he's, like you said, the only guy that can defend and also shoot on the perimeter. But he had a couple really nice recovery defensive plays. He's always seemed like from the weak side coming down and making a play on a big, whether it's stripping a ball or coming around for a block on the weak side. I thought that was nice. But yeah, I mean, like, there are guys on this team that can do some things very well. Obviously, Matisse has the things he can do very well. Seth is an incredible offensive player, and I thought he was taking more contested shots this game than usual, off the dribble, off the catch, pull up, side steps. There's just everything he has, and I really don't know why actually defenses are as mindful of him as they should be. It seems like they should be more terrified of him, and they kind of aren't. But I mean, he's been electric as a scorer so far. He had a really nice lefty drive and finish off an inbounds with the shot clock expiring. That was cool. But then, to your point, like, he's in for defense at the end of the game. There was a defensive possession where he was in at the end of the game, and I know maybe Doc was like, if we get a steal, then maybe he's gonna be open for 3. But all of a sudden, KD catches the ball around half court. Matisse comes in to trap. Seth, if Seth is Ben, obviously, but like Danny or Shake or something like that, then that's a trap, and hoping that he's sealed with half court. Maybe he makes a bad pass or tips it or something like that. But Seth just fouls him because he's too small and is not in for defense. But he's in there for defense, and that's both a strange Doc choice and also emblematic of this team not having enough two-way guys. George Hill would have been another guy that could have done this type of thing. Wasn't as successful last year as they needed him to be. It's a team full of guys that are like good at enough things, but are they good at enough things together? And I don't
right. And Maxey, by the way, like another game where he sort of, worked his way into it. I thought he was much stronger in the, as the game went on. But I'm glad he's getting the reps, I'm glad, and I'm actually glad I do like Shake. And I, when people were talking about Shake starting, they were having like a bit of a meltdown. I understood the point of it. I would understand the point of it, but I also kind of think it's a blessing in disguise that Shake is hurt in that Maxey and Furkan are getting reps that I think are valuable, and, if Maxey has a really iffy first half in both of these games and there's another option there, how Doc is, like, I don't know if Maxey gets a chance to redeem himself as the game goes on, but they're forced to let him do that. And I think in the long run, that's going to help.
Yeah, it was cool that he was covering Harden for at least some of the game. I think that's valuable for him long term. I didn't think he did a bad job. He had a couple poke outs, and I think his energy made it tough for him. There was one time when Harden totally shoved him on a rebound that wasn't called, but it's just emblematic of how strong James Harden is and doesn't get credit for it, and how Maxey is still a little tiny. And so he's got to get bulking up there. Loved when Maxey had LaMarcus on a switch, and then he hit a step back three. That was cool. We've seen Maxey turn the corner. I love watching Maxey turn the corner. I love the touch on the floater, but like having that weapon of a step back as a shooter, we've seen the offseason videos, like him seeing, okay, I have a switch on me, I'm going to get an open look, is cool, and something that I wish that they did more at the ends of games, because the Nets were switching on whatever, and they just stopped exploiting those, whether that was like Tobias with Patty Mills underneath, or Maxey with a big on him. It would have been nice to do that. It seemed like the offense just like went out the window entirely. And there was a time when, Javon Carter's an excellent defender, an excellent point of attack defender, and he picks Maxey up half court, and like he just can't do shit with Maxey. Like he's too fast. He's too good of a dribbler. He's too fast, and Maxey takes him all the way to the rim and finishes. And it's really, really nice. And I, just as those reps during a game, just as those reps defensively on a guy like Harden will help in the playoffs, I think letting Maxey work through, like, okay, go try to beat Damian Lillard at the end of a game.
Sure.
I think it'll help. And even if it struggles, even if he misses, even if he's not that guy yet, this team has just limited options. And to say, like, we'll figure it out over the course of the season, they just haven't. And Tobias hasn't proven to be that guy. Once in a while, he'll get hotter if he can, like, make a quick decision and stuff. I'm not saying Tobias is incapable of scoring, but
but he's not that guy.
Games, he hasn't been. And I would rather have someone with a little more juice than Maxey getting to the rim, or at least drawing defenders, and then you can kick it out. Like, you just need somebody that can handle the ball that's that fast, and he's the only one on the team right now. Unless a guy that should be playing, and it's a bummer that he's hurt, is Grant Riller. Would definitely be getting major minutes. And I'm happy that for Korkmaz, but it'd be cool if Riller was healthy. But
to use a quote from our ex-coach Brett Brown, talking about growing a bomber, he used that in Korkmaz, talking about Maxey growing a killer, in this, like, let him fail, let him get his, let him run a pick and roll and get his shit punched and at the rim, whatever. I'm going to talk about our final two sponsors together here, because they were both part of Bark in the Park today. So our Bark in the Park team for rights to Ricky Sanchez for the Providence Animal Center raised $15,480 to save homeless dogs and cats. So I really appreciate that. So I appreciate everyone who donated, but the two companies that stepped up to buy the T-shirts were Big Barker and By Nature Pet Foods. Big Barker has been a sponsor of the Ricky for a really long time. Somebody asked me at the walk/run today, what is Big Barker? And I said, they make dog beds, but it's not like the dog beds that you're used to. And most people see dog beds in pet stores, and they're like, that looks cushy, fluffy, and they get the dog bed and the dog sleeps in it and probably ruins it after 2 years. And that is not the kind of bed that you want your dog sleeping on. You want a high quality bed, because your dog sleeps a lot, and you want your dog to be comfortable. And as your dog gets older, those joints are going to get creaky. And if your dog is sleeping on a big barker, they will be decidedly less creaky. It makes a real difference. They did a study at Penn Vet. It showed it makes a real difference. Go to bigbarker.com/Ricky. I saw a lot of processed pups today. It was wonderful. There's so many dogs there. My face, I think, smells like dog saliva at this point, which is disgusting. But saw a lot of processed pups. Bigbarker.com/Ricky gets you the Big Barker dog bed and the processed pup patches so your dog can sleep in comfort and real support. You might say to me, it's expensive. It is, but it's worth it. Your job as a pet owner is to spoil your pet. Also, as a 10-year warranty, the foam doesn't flatten or they replace it for free, a 1-year at-home trial, and they will even pay for the shipping if you don't want it, and handmade in the USA, Big Barker dog beds. And By Nature pet foods. So By Nature, when you look at pet food, when you pour it into the bowl, it all looks the same. It's like these brown pellets. It's not the same. By Nature pet food is different. It's different in two ways. It's different from the ingredients. And soft shit award. I forgot. Are you going to have that ready at the end of this ad?
I'll think about it. Sure.
Okay. Soft shit award. By Nature pet food, home of the soft shit award. So 2 things. Better ingredients and made better. Better ingredients. Premium proteins. Protein is the first thing listed on the ingredients. That's really important. And cook better. They slow cook it so it is more nutrient rich. So your pet gets more nutrients out of it. Like, that's it, right? Your pet metabolizes food really fast because they're small. The food needs to be more nutrient rich, and By Nature does that. It's really important. As I mentioned, those premium proteins, also super probiotics like spinach and blueberries and ginger and coconut oil for both dogs and cats of all sizes, all, indoor, outdoor, all that shit. By Nature pet food. Never had a recall. Family owned and operated company. Use code 20RTRS at Chewy or Amazon. You get 20% off your first order with By Nature. That is 20RTRS at Amazon and Chewy. Thank you to both Big Barker and By Nature for making today's Bark in the Park a huge success from a Ricky standpoint and otherwise. And look at everybody here who was part of it too. So, Soft Shit Award, Mike, who gets it?
We can do this as we get into our next segment. I'm gonna give it to myself. I'm gonna self-deal myself. I'm gonna Colangelo myself the award. So Darryl goes on the radio and talks about people should buckle in. This is going to go for a long time. If we can trade Ben Simmons for a difference maker, we will do it. And I think over the last few pods, I had some soft shit about just wanting it to be over and wanting to move on and being scared of either his value not improving, which I think his value is what it is, and it'll just take teams deciding that they need to do this trade as things go south for them or whatever it is over the course of the season. And also, I was concerned that this will hamper, this will further piss Embiid off. But I kind of just have to trust that, especially with how close Darryl and Embiid have been this season, that Embiid gets it. He's a guy that understands, I'd say more than most stars, seems to understand, come at things from an NBA 2K, fantasy basketball perspective, where he's yeah, look, I get it. If you would, he's not just saying I deserve everything. He's saying look, this is what it is. We had to be bad and now we're good. And now we have to hold on to this guy until we can actually compete for a championship. And so I trust that he understands that. I trust that Darryl and him are on the same page about it. So I give it to myself.
You give yourself the soft shit award
for being a little bit squeamish about that kind of thing, because it's it going on for 4 years. I don't think it's going to happen.
It'd be great for the pod, honestly.
No, I don't know that I would make it. I definitely would make it, but he's not going to deal from a position of weakness. And as much as the present feels like several rungs of hell, and Darryl going on the radio and just answering these questions and saying honestly, we will trade him. He wants to be traded, but we're not going to do it. It's all very out front. It's very mom and dad are each having affairs and we're talking about it publicly. It seems just very strange. Things that should be behind closed doors are now just Embiid's talking to the crowd being please be nice. We like him. it's all very strange. But the fact of the matter is, and it was clear in this game, either Ben needs to play and they find ways to be better at the ends of games, or they have to trade him for someone that will actually make a difference, because otherwise, what's the point? And so it's cool to hear Daryl being like, I am psychotically, singularly focused on winning a championship. That's my only job. And that's what we've wanted for a long time. And so as hard as it is right now, I think we got to just go, he's right. And I will try to, take my vitamins and not pass out.
Well, yeah. So I sort of like, we'll talk about this now, I guess, right? Like, I think there's two things to talk about here. There's the Morey interview and what he said, and then there's the Ben arrival and in that situation.
Let's finish the Morey interview first.
Yeah, the Morey interview first. Like, I trust him in that. I know he doesn't believe all that he says. Like he is trying to. He wasn't just sending a message to the fans. He was sending a message to the Clutch camp. He was sending a message to other GMs who might want to trade for him now. Whatever. He was sending a message to everybody. So, like, it's not going to go on for 4 years. That's the first thing. But the other thing is, but the thing that, like, the logic problem, and I don't think Morey actually believes this, but it's the trouble that I have with, like, the stance that they're taking. And maybe privately they're not taking that stance, right? Like, maybe they're totally comfortable with him finding a way to sit it at home and get paid and not be part of the team. Like I mentioned my conspiracy theory last time, and while I don't know that that's totally true, I also think that there might be some like gray area there. But like you said in there, his value is his value. I don't think his value is changing. I don't think his value will change if he plays. I don't think his value will change if he sits. I think that it's possible that his value is lower if there's chaos, because that other teams make right. But there's only value in that if he actually makes that trade, right? Like they might think that there's value, but there's only value in, maybe there's perceptual value of that. But like, unless he's willing to make that trade, there's no real value there. I don't think anything short of him getting on the court and showing that he has addressed the issues that have plagued him, I don't think make his value higher. The true thing that I think is happening, and he can't say that, this is the one thing that Morey can't say, is I'm waiting around for something to get fucked up on another team.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he's doing. He's just waiting around for something to get fucked up on another team.
He's basically said that. He's said that as much as he could say.
Yeah.
Right now, the offers are role players, and we're not trading him for a role player. The Sixers also have role players. They have plenty of role players. Could those role players be improved for maybe guys that are a bit better on both ends? Maybe, but right now they have depth. Isaiah Joe hasn't been great, but I still believe in him as a rotation player this year.
They need a high-level perimeter player. It's the same thing.
They need the thing that they need, and whether that's Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard, or if they decide that CJ McCollum could be that guy, I doubt that they are. I think that at this point, if they're just holding out for it. Zach LaVine doesn't think he's going where. Like we've done this dance enough times.
Yeah, a million times.
So he's just being like, I'm waiting for those things to happen. And we could just basically have the Blazers and Wizards on scoreboard watch. Right now, the Wizards look pretty good, which is wild.
And Beal didn't even play last night, did he?
Didn't play last night.
Yeah.
But it's a strange situation, and the odds of it happening are pretty low. But then I guess he's just going to be on the team this year. And if he's on the team at home, if he's on the team, like traveling with the team but not playing, I don't know. Definitely have no idea what's going to happen there. But I think Daryl has basically said, like, no one is more maniacal than me. I am not going to trade him unless we have 4 years of this. If we need to, I'm not going to trade him for something that is not going to make us a championship team. I think there's a way to half step that. I think there's a way to trade him for picks, a ton of picks, and then flip those picks later on.
Which are just as valuable as he is, especially to a team
which
that
certainly
is
could be, especially if there's a pick like that. Daryl, every team has their own like algorithm that'll tell them like how good this team's going to be. If you can get like a Timberwolves pick or whatever, those kinds of things, then you could go, hey, that's not just a first round pick. That's a possibly like top 6 pick.
Yeah.
And then that would be more valuable than just like a selection of like, for example, Pacers picks that are be like probably in the late teens type of thing. So there's that would be something to consider if they can get like a higher first round pick than just like a bunch of middling ones. But this Embiid is in his prime. People made the point that like we're not going to waste Embiid's prime, and by doing that, we're going to hold this guy out for 4 years. I get that sounds weird, but it's you can only make the trade once. You can hold on to him for a long time, but you can only make the trade once. And so whether that means eventually, say he sits the whole season, doesn't play. Sixers never trade him. He's just around. And then coming in the next offseason, like, okay, well, I'm not going to sit another season. So then he plays, and then we see what happens there. It's a lot can change. It's a long time, but I give myself the soft shit award because really he can only make the trade once, and it's got to be good. And it's not like an ego thing. It's we have to best position this team to win a championship thing.
Yeah. And truthfully, it's like I hit a point yesterday. I love this shit, right? Like I love the drama. The basketball is great, but I love like all of this shit. It's been part of what we did since the very beginning. Like we didn't start off thinking it would be like this, but there's been something every year to be like, man, that's crazy. And it's fun to talk about. This thing was sort of fun to talk about for a little bit, but it hit me yesterday. We'll get to it when we get to it, but it was when I saw like the Tobias tweet and then the quote. And I was just like, oh my God, enough. And I agree with you. They should wait around and see what happens, but I'm just sick of talking about it. Like I'm just like, I finally hit the point where I'd rather talk about basketball games than this horseshit, like, and I love horseshit. I think the horseshit part of like the pod has been fun, right? Like people need to know.
I love different kinds of horseshit. This is not my brand of horseshit. This is an upsetting. This is
just like
force feeding me a very like sort of tainted piece of horseshit. If you give me like a pristine, like shined up, real nice piece of horseshit, I'll eat it. I'll eat that all the way down, full knife and fork. But this is not my brand of that.
So I want everyone to see, Mike, and I want you to see, because I want everyone to see, like, there's all these people here drinking the one beer. So everyone say hi to Mike. Yeah. I got it. You gotta get a haircut from over here. So.
Just got a haircut.
Yeah, you just got a haircut. That is a good point. Yeah. So he gave the South Shit Award to himself.
Damn right he did.
Yeah.
They're pumped up. They're pumped up about it.
This is very funny to everyone on the podcast who's actually hearing Mike. He gave himself the Soft Shit Award to himself because he said that like the last pod, he just wanted the trade to happen to get it over with. But he realized that Daryl's right. They got to wait around, even if they got to wait around for 4 more years. So Mike gets the Soft Shit.
4 more years. 4 more years.
Great. All right. So one quick thing before we get to like the truly Ben stuff of it all. Daryl also made the point saying it's a uniting factor. Like he's like, this hasn't sucked. It's actually been a way to unite us, which I think is it's a spin of what is happening, but I don't think it's necessarily untrue or capable of being true.
I agree that it's not untrue.
Yeah. And I think especially when combined with what Joel is saying, obviously Tobias has been the vocal leader in this team, and him like retweeting that Shams report saying like we'll support our brother and we'll take as much time as he needs, give him space, all that stuff. Joel like saying, hey, I'm taking a more active leadership role in this team. When in the past I would just go back to my hotel room and play video games. Now we're going out to dinner as a team, and I'm being mindful of that. I wonder if like the pandemic season was a factor there, where like now that there was 0 team communication really off the court or in practice, I guess, that like he felt like, you know what, I do need this, and missing it means I need to do, or he's just growing up or whatever it is. But that's good to see. That's good to see for Joel, especially if like eventually they trade Tobias. Like Joel will need to especially be the more vocal guy. He's been around a long time. He's the franchise cornerstone. Like he needs to be this person. And it seemed like for a while it was sort of the like Ben and Joel don't really vibe all the time, but it was also like Joel is not being the vocal leader, and you kind of just need your best player to be that guy. In some way, you need to do it. You can have
especially
like a
in
Udonis
basketball.
Haslem. Especially in basketball, you can have a Udonis Haslem. You can have like a like even Jokic is not all the time like the most vocal guy, but he's like it's on like he is taking responsibility. He is allowing himself to be the cornerstone. Giannis leads with example. Like all those guys are really like doing it. And I don't know how many are like organizing, book club shit or whatever, but Joel just needs to be present and take an active role in that. And so I do buy into the fact that it could be a uniting factor in like an us against the world. A little weirder if it's us against our other teammate. But there is definitely like a bunker mentality to it that I hope they're all playing into and going. And I don't know if Doc is a part of that bunker, but it's cool to see Joel, growing up in this way.
So Mike, before we talk about the Ben part of all this, look at
got my beer yet.
Now you can't hear Mike. I got Godner sitting here, but he's like, Godner's like fucking ripped now. Like Godner, how much weight did you lose?
I had to train for that basketball game.
How much weight did you lose?
I'm down about 80.
80 pounds.
Good for you,
Derek Bonner, you can't hear Mike.
I'm just various signs.
Yeah.
But the foot.
The foot. How's the foot?
Better.
We need better.
Out of the cast,
I'm
I'm able to walk. It's a little swollen if you can see it. It's a little bruised.
Honestly, it feels like for the YouTube viewers, it feels like Derek may have faked the foot thing.
Foot now?
Well, look, it looks fucking
that's
fine.
not proper support.
Massive. You compare it to the other one.
He's going to be on stage dancing at a Meek Mill concert.
He will be on stage dancing at Meek Mill concert. We're going to finish up now. Thank you for stopping by. Derek was part of the team too, so Godner stopped by. Godner, like honestly,
hot Godner.
He looks fucking great. Like it's unreal. Godner, everyone. It's fucking Derek Bodner right there. He looks amazing.
Trying to get applause lines for half of the audio of a podcast.
So, all right. So the part of it where he shows up and he tells the team he's not mentally ready to play. Like, I think there's a bit of an unfair, certainly online, there's like an unfair conversation about this where if he had showed up and he did and said that his back hurt and everyone was like, that's bullshit, there was no problem with it. And then he wasn't mentally ready to play and people said, that's bullshit. And all of a sudden everyone has a problem with it. If being an ass, I don't know what Ben has going on. I have heard that he has been very difficult behind the scenes, even so much so that like friends are walking away. Like that's what but being you can go through what you're going through, but like the last part of it is self-created because of how the last few months have gone, right? Like, so I see a therapist every week. I believe in being sensitive to all of those things, but like, I don't think he's earned the benefit of the doubt in this one. And it also was like, the report was very clear when we read the woes thing about what the CBA says about, mental things. And I think it's a pretty complicated thing to talk about. And I think on tweets, it's very easy to sound like an asshole or tweets is very easy to sound very holier than thou. And I think there's a lot of like, do I think that mentally he doesn't want to play in front of Philadelphia fans or the teammates that he's obliterated for the last 3 months? Like, sure. I believe that's like very, very, very hard. I also don't believe that's the same thing as like suffering from anxiety and depression. And I also think that there's a gray area in between. All I can say is that like he has been part of this the last 4 months. Like he has agency in that. He hired Clutch. You can't just put this all on Clutch. He is the one who did not who threw a tantrum during practice and got himself thrown out of it. So like, I just don't want it personally. Like, I think it's good for the team and for the trade scenario for Tobias to say what he said, and like, we support our brother, yada, yada, yada. I don't want to be told like from Tobias how I have to talk or think about it, to be quite honest with you. Like I don't think And I don't think the media has the right to ask questions. The media has the right to investigate and all of those things. So I've said before, I feel for him as a person. It's a lot to go through. That fuck up was a lot in the game, was a lot to go through, and how much this town is fed up with him is a lot to go through. But I also think I think it's impossible to talk about, and I think it's impossible to just wipe away the last few months by saying I'm not ready to do it. So I think it's a difficult thing overall to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, as it is all a very gray area, and I think a lot of it stems from the fact that Ben is just has never been vulnerable publicly. It's clear that he's going through some shit. Whether that is I don't like coming to work here anymore because of various things, some real, some just his feelings, or I'm getting panic attacks and debilitating anxiety about it is a different situation. But we just don't know, and we kind of can't know unless he talks about it. I think it's tough to be. I don't like armchair psychologists speculating on what is or isn't going through his head, and when it was people being he's calling him saying that he was coddled and he doesn't, and that kind of thing. It's it's just a lot of speculation of what people, and he's just, because he hasn't publicly talked about it much or at all, really. It's hard to say one way or the other. I was watching there's a documentary, Untold, Malice at the Palace, on Netflix, and Ron Artest. So that after the fight in Detroit, Ron Artest was suspended for the whole season for his role. In the offseason, he asked for a trade. His teammates Jermaine O'Neal and Steven Jackson then get pissed off about it, being we just had this big galvanizing thing, and we were had to go to court for a bunch of stuff. We were on national news and shit, and then you bail on us after what we were going into next season, being okay, clean slate, let's go now win the championship that we should have won this previous season. And then Ron asked for a trade, and it soured the relationship with them for a long time. And then in the documentary, Artest says he was being cowardly, and he feels bad about it now. But it was because he was in a pretty delicate mental state, and he didn't want to go back to that place in Indiana where in that jersey, people would see him as the guy that went into the stands and everything. And even said it the night that the Lakers won a championship that Artest was a part of. He said it on the court in a post-game interview that he regrets leaving Indiana the way he did. And he said he feels like a coward. And so I think off of that, and Ron Artest now has clearly grown and become way better, as society has, at just talking about what he was going through at that time. And I think his teammates now would support him more than they may have then, or understood him better than they have then. But I think we can say that it's both. Artest was clearly going through something, but also to his point, handled it poorly. And so I think Ben is clearly going through something, which we won't know what it is exactly until he can come out and be vulnerable about it, which is not really in his nature. Maybe he never does it. And whether that's just on-court stuff or medical stuff, or the very horrifying allegations that his sister made last offseason that caused Ben to miss a couple games. We just won't know about it, but we can also say that it's both. He's also probably handled it poorly as a professional and to his teammates. But now that they've had this conversation in the locker room, and whether it might be hey, I have to say this to try to continue getting paid because it's in the thing, but it also, I think, is, no matter what, partly real. It's not a 0 or 1, right? It's not either he has a ton of issues mentally that he's dealing with that are very serious and seeking professional help, or none of that and he's full of shit. It's not either of those. It's he wants to be paid, obviously. He wants to leave, obviously, and he's going through some amount of mental anguish, whether it's about family stuff or team stuff, or just I'm ready for a new start, any of those kinds of things. It's a very difficult situation. I don't think the media is very good at handling it. I don't think I'm speaking on it very well, but I just think it would be best for everyone if if there was a trade and we could just move on and everybody does it. But I get on Daryl's side of things, like he can't think like that. He has to be singularly focused on winning a championship. And so we're just stuck in this sort of muck.
I think before I do want to read the one email from CJ's friend group, but before I do, I want to point you to an interview from years ago. Chuck Klosterman interviewed Royce White, former Sixer Royce White, who was one of the first ones to talk about mental health and how they should be able to have mental health, doctors, and you should miss games for mental health. And he did an interview years ago with Royce White, Chuck Klosterman did, where Royce White said that he thought that it was, I'm paraphrasing, 90% of the population was dealing with mental issues.
Sure.
And Klosterman asked, well, doesn't that just make it part of the human condition then? And then I thought it was an interesting question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because being a human is hard sometimes. My life is hard. Your life is, then you could compare it to somebody whose life is more difficult, but you know what I mean? We all go through difficult emotional things, whether it's friends or family or coworkers and all those things. And it's really hard to parse, to your point, when you don't know a lot, what we're talking about that is part of the human condition and what is more than part of the human condition. And I agree. The sooner this is over, the better for everybody. The better for him, the better for the team. I agree that they should do the best that they can. But that said, I think it would be better for everybody.
I have empathy for him, and also criticism for how he's handled it and how the people around him have handled it. And so it would just be nice if the Wizards would just very kindly trade us Bradley Beal. That would be really helpful to me personally. I think it would go a long way to restoring the public's faith in DC working, would be if they trade us Bradley Beal. For Ben, or maybe just a bunch of thank yous.
So we got an email, and the last pod, somebody said that they wanted us to do a segment every pod about CJ's friend group, which, having seen it on Twitter a little bit, I am sort of interested as an old person what CJ's friend group is. So we got an email from Ben, who said, "Hey guys, avid Ricky listener for the past 6 months and member of CJ's friend group. Love the new segment.
6 months. Avid for 6 months.
Yep. Love the new segment suggestion for the YouTube comment of the week. Much prefer to get my friend group updates from my workday podcast listen than 2-minute Snapchat videos broken up into choppy 10-second clips." Here is the moment from his friend group. And there's some CJ information in here. I feel like the stream may cut off because of the CJ information. Similar to the orangutan chicken debate, this was also a hot topic in our friend group for a day or so. When you take a shit, do you wipe in the ass to nuts direction, hand reaching between your legs, or the nuts to ass direction, hand reaching behind you between ass and toilet seat? CJ and I are on opposite sides of this debate, so I'd like your input. CJ also squats when he poops, so I generally don't trust his bathroom etiquette input. Now, Mike, I don't know how you feel. I think there's only one answer to this. You go front to back with wiping after a number two.
And front is balls?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do go front to back.
The question is, now CJ can enter into the chat if you would like, or if you would like to stay out of this. They said they're on different sides of the debate, so one of the two of these people goes the other way.
Sure, someone is pushing duty into their balls.
And CJ has not popped up on the video, so that takes...
And that's fine. That's his choice, but it speaks volumes. Good update from the friend group. Thank you, avid listener.
The Apple Podcast 5-star review and the YouTube comment of the week will be back next week. I thank everyone who ran and walked today for the Bark in the Park. I thank everybody at Four Fingers Brewery. Should I get them to sing the Sixers song or something, or just let it end?
Probably let it end. I did want to say that do you have any thoughts about the 75th anniversary NBA team?
Oh, I feel like we could do a whole pod on it. The 75th anniversary team. Russell Westbrook shouldn't be on it. That's my take. Russell Westbrook being on the fucking 75th anniversary team is ridiculous. That's my one take.
I feel like Tracy McGrady not being on there is upsetting to me.
We should be on over Westbrook.
I feel like anyone, honestly, anybody from like the 50s, both because it looks silly when you watch clips of them dribbling and you're like, get the fuck out of here. But also like before the NBA was like fully integrated or like limiting or altogether not allowing many black players. It feels like, come on, like get out of here. My dad texted me that Bill Sharman couldn't have wiped John Chaney's ass. He said that word for word. Bill Sharman couldn't have wiped John Chaney's ass. John Chaney.
Yeah, but like,
get out of here. Get him out of there.
If you talk about
Don't
baseball, you got to have Babe Ruth in the. Russell Westbrook shouldn't have been on the fucking team.
But like, just watch them dribble with like one hand and like.
Yeah, but everybody
like
was.
I know, that's why they shouldn't be in there. They're not the 75 best players of all time. They can be in the Hall of Fame, sure. For the time that you were playing, like you're the best, whatever. Who was there, great. But like the 75 best players in the NBA history, like 60 of them are probably currently playing. Like it's a joke.
Can we pause this for the next pod? I feel like this should be a whole thing.
My last thought, and it's not about the players at all, is just when team accounts or the NBA will go like, welcome to the 75th best players. Congrats, Wilt. And it's like, Wilt's dead. You don't have to congratulate someone who is dead on Twitter for getting in there. Hey, congrats. You're one of the best players of all time. Like I'm not alive. You're congratulating someone that's not there. It's very strange to me.
By the way, I thought it was funny that on the 75th from the NBA, the Charles Barkley one, he was wearing a Suns jersey, and the Sixers retweeted it. And that's like a whole other thing, whether historically Charles Barkley is a Sun or a Sixer. I think he's a Sixer because I'm from here, but I think it would be interesting to ask like nationally what people think Charles is, but I still think he's a Sixer and not a Sun. Thanks to everyone who donated, everyone who ran, everyone at Four Fingers Brewery, where you can get one beer, 4 packs of it right here. Zach Lowe.
Thank you, Zach Lowe. Come on.
Thank you, Zach Lowe, for not suing us or Four Fingers Brewery or anything. And that's all I got. Our final song is from the brand new War on Drugs album, which comes out on Friday. I Don't Live Here Anymore. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah, Lickface. If Joel plays in Oklahoma City, someone should be fired. Some assistant in charge of Joel's playing or not playing should be fired because it's not going to fall on Doc.
But I'm rising.